The question that confuses everyone. If someone stops believing in God, are they still Jewish? If someone converts to Judaism, are they fully Jewish, or always somehow less than those born Jewish? If a person has Jewish DNA but practices Christianity or Islam, or no religion at all, what are they? These questions sound simple, but they have confused people for centuries. Here is the problem. When someone asks what makes a person Jewish, they are usually trying to fit Judaism into familiar categories. Is Judaism a religion, an ethnicity, a nationality, a culture, a race? The answer surprises almost everyone. Judaism does not fit neatly into any single modern Western category. It predates those categories. It operates by different rules. And that is why conversations about Jewish identity so often end in confusion. In the modern world, we are used to clean separations. Religion is what you believe. Ethnicity is who your ancestors were. Nationality is what country you belong to. Culture is what you practice. But Judaism blurs all these lines. It always has. And that confusion has led to endless debates, misunderstandings, and even political arguments. People outside the Jewish community do not understand it. Sometimes people inside the Jewish community argue about it too. So today, we are answering the question as clearly as possible. What actually makes someone Jewish? If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. Why Judaism is not just a religion. Let's start by challenging a common assumption. Most people in the Western world think of Judaism primarily as a religion, one of the big three alongside Christianity and Islam. Jews go to synagogue, Christians go to church, Muslims go to mosque. Same category, different building. But this framework does not actually work for Judaism. Christianity is clearly a religion. You become Christian by accepting certain beliefs, faith in Jesus Christ as Lord and Savior. If you stop believing, you are no longer Christian in any meaningful sense. Christianity spread across the world through conversion, creating communities of believers from every ethnic background. Islam is similar. You become Muslim by declaring the Shahada, the testimony of faith. Muslims come from every ethnicity on earth. Islam is defined by belief and practice. But Judaism is different. Judaism began not as a set of beliefs but as a people. The Israelites were not originally a faith group who happened to share beliefs. They were a nation, a tribal confederation bound by ancestry, covenant, land, and shared history. In the Hebrew Bible, the Israelites are described as a goy, a nation. They have territory. They have laws. They have a political structure. They fight wars. They make treaties. They have a king. Religion and peoplehood were completely inseparable. You did not convert to Israelite beliefs the way someone might convert to Christianity today. You were born into a people. Your identity came from your family, your tribe, your connection to a specific land, and a specific covenant with God. So from the very beginning, Judaism was simultaneously spiritual and national. It was both a relationship with God and a membership in a people. And here is the crucial point. That dual identity never disappeared. Even after the exile to Babylon, even after the destruction of the temple, even after 2,000 years of diaspora, living scattered among the nations without a homeland. Jewish identity remained both religious and ethnic, both spiritual and national. That is why Judaism confuses modern categories. It is not just a religion. It is not just an ethnicity. It is both and more. The biblical definition of Jewish identity. In biblical times, identity was fundamentally tribal. You were an Israelite because you descended from Israel, the patriarch Jacob, whose name was changed to Israel after wrestling with a divine being. His 12 sons became the founders of 12 tribes. If you were born into one of those tribes, you were an Israelite. Simple. This was true of most ancient peoples. Egyptians descended from Egyptians. Moabites descended from Moabites. Ammonites from Ammonites. Identity was ancestry. After the Babylonian exile in the 6th century BCE, something shifted. The 10 northern tribes had already disappeared after the Assyrian conquest. The remaining identifiable Israelites came primarily from the southern kingdom of Judah, That's where the word Jew comes from, Yehudi in Hebrew, meaning from Judah. But the exile forced a deeper transformation. When the temple was destroyed in 586 BCE and Jews were scattered to Babylon, identity could no longer depend on living in a specific land or worshiping at a specific temple. Those anchors were gone. So Jewish identity shifted from land to law, from geography to covenant, from tribe to Torah. Jews in Babylon developed new practices, prayer services instead of sacrifice, study of sacred texts, communal gathering in what would become synagogues. They maintained their identity not through territory but through practice. That's when Judaism became portable. You could be Jewish in Babylon. You could be Jewish in Persia. You could be Jewish anywhere, as long as you maintained the covenant, observed the laws, and remembered who you were. And that portability is precisely why Jewish identity survived, when so many other ancient peoples, Moabites, Edomites, Philistines, and Assyrians themselves, vanished from history. Rabbinic Judaism and the matrilineal principle. After the destruction of the Second Temple in 70 CE, the rabbis, religious scholars who replaced the priests as leaders of the Jewish community, formalized many aspects of Jewish law and identity. One of the most significant rulings concerned how Jewish status is determined. In Rabbinic Judaism, Jewish identity is traditionally passed through the mother. If your mother is Jewish, you are Jewish. Period. Regardless of who your father is. This principle appears in early rabbinic sources and is codified in the Mishnah, the foundational text of rabbinic law compiled around 200 CE. Specifically, Mishnah Kedushin chapter 3, Mishnah 12 establishes that the child of a Jewish mother and a non-Jewish father is Jewish. Why matrilineal descent? Scholars have debated this for centuries. Some suggest that Roman law, which emphasized maternal lineage for determining citizenship in certain cases, influenced rabbinic thinking during the period when this principle was formalized. Others point to practical considerations. In times of war, persecution, and social upheaval, maternity was certain while paternity might be doubtful. Still others see it as reflecting the reality that mothers typically had the primary role in raising children and transmitting cultural identity within the home. Whatever the historical reasons, Rabbinic Judaism formalized this principle, and it remains the standard in traditional Jewish law, halakha, to this day. The implications are profound. Under traditional Jewish law, even if someone is completely secular, does not keep kosher, does not observe Shabbat, does not believe in God, and never sets foot in a synagogue, if their mother is Jewish, they are still considered Jewish. You cannot un-Jew yourself by abandoning practice or belief. You might be considered a bad Jew, a non-observant Jew, a sinful Jew, but still a Jew. This is radically different from Christianity or Islam, where identity is fundamentally about belief. A Christian who stops believing in Christ is no longer Christian in any meaningful religious sense. A Muslim who rejects Islam is considered an apostate. But a Jew who stops practicing Judaism is still Jewish. This is what makes Jewish identity irreducible to the category of religion alone. It has an ethnic, familial dimension that persists regardless of belief or practice. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. Conversion. Can you become Jewish? Given everything we've just said about ancestry and matrilineal descent, you might wonder, can someone who isn't born Jewish become Jewish? The answer is yes. Judaism has always allowed conversion. But conversion to Judaism is fundamentally different from conversion to Christianity or Islam. Judaism is not evangelical. There is no mission to convert the world. Jews don't send out missionaries. They don't believe that everyone needs to become Jewish to be saved or righteous. In Jewish theology, non-Jews can be perfectly good people by following basic ethical principles, the Noahide laws. So why would someone convert? Historically, people converted for various reasons: marriage to a Jewish partner, sincere spiritual calling, intellectual conviction, desire to join the Jewish people and their destiny. Conversion has traditionally required several elements. First, study, learning about Jewish law, practice, history, and beliefs. This typically takes at least a year and often longer. Second, commitment to observing the commandments, mitzvot. The convert must sincerely intend to live as a Jew. Third, for males, circumcision, brit milah. If already circumcised, a symbolic drop of blood is drawn. Fourth, immersion in a mikveh, a ritual bath symbolizing spiritual rebirth. Fifth, approval by a bet din, a rabbinic court of 3 learned Jews who examine the candidate and witness the conversion. Once properly converted, a convert is considered fully Jewish, not second class, not partial, not Jewish but. The Talmud states, a convert who converts is like a newborn child. This means the convert is considered to have begun a completely new identity. They are as Jewish as someone whose ancestors stood at Mount Sinai. In fact, Jewish tradition holds that converts possess special merit because they chose Judaism rather than simply being born into it. The Torah repeatedly emphasizes loving the convert and treating them with special care. This openness to conversion demonstrates that Judaism is not strictly ethnic or racial. It is covenantal. The covenant is inherited by birth, but it can also be entered by choice. Ethnicity. Is Jewishness genetic? So if Judaism is not strictly religious, is it strictly ethnic? Is there a Jewish gene? Modern DNA studies have explored this question, and the results are fascinating. Genetic research shows that many Jewish communities around the world, Ashkenazi Jews from Eastern Europe, Sephardic Jews from Spain and the Mediterranean, and Mizrahi Jews from the Middle East and North Africa, share significant Middle Eastern ancestry tracing back to the ancient Levant. Despite living on different continents for centuries or millennia, these communities share genetic markers indicating common origins in the region of ancient Israel. This confirms what tradition always claimed. Jews are descendants of the ancient Israelites who were exiled and scattered across the world. But Jewish populations also show admixture, mixing with local populations over time. Ashkenazi Jews have European ancestry alongside their Middle Eastern core. Sephardic Jews have Iberian and Mediterranean admixture. Various communities show genetic contributions from North Africa, Central Asia, and elsewhere. This is not surprising. Over 2,000 years there was intermarriage, conversion, and genetic mixing, even as Jewish communities generally maintained distinct identity. So what does this mean for the question, is Judaism ethnic? Jewish identity includes ethnic continuity. There is a genetic component. Most Jews share ancestry tracing back to the ancient Middle East. But Jewish identity is not purely racial or genetic. You can have Jewish DNA, documented Israelite ancestry, and not be Jewish if your mother was not Jewish and you never converted. You can convert with absolutely no Jewish ancestry and be fully, completely Jewish. Jewish identity is ethnic and religious and cultural and historical, all at once. That is what makes it complex. That is what makes it resist simple categorization. Secular Jews. Still Jewish? Here's a test case that illuminates Jewish identity perfectly. In Israel today, surveys consistently show that a large percentage of Jews, sometimes approaching half, identify as secular, kiloni in Hebrew. These secular Jews may not keep kosher, they may not observe Shabbat strictly, they may not attend synagogue except perhaps on the high holidays. Many do not believe in God at all, and yet they identify as Jewish. They are counted as Jewish. They serve in the Israeli army as Jews. They marry other Jews. They raise their children as Jews. How can someone be Jewish without practicing Judaism? Because Jewish identity includes dimensions beyond religious practice. Language, Hebrew connects Jews across the world and especially in Israel. Culture, music, food, humor, literature, shared references and experiences. History, collective memory of Exodus, exile, persecution, and survival. National belonging, identification with the Jewish people, and often with the state of Israel. Secular Jews may reject theology, but embrace peoplehood. They are part of the Jewish story even if they do not believe in the God of that story. Jewish identity survived exile precisely because it became more than belief. It became peoplehood, a sense of belonging to a particular community with a particular history, regardless of individual religious observance. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles. Modern denominations and disagreements. It would be misleading to suggest that all Jews agree on questions of identity. They don't. Different Jewish movements approach these questions differently, and sometimes the disagreements are sharp. Orthodox Judaism recognizes only traditional halakhic definitions. You are Jewish if your mother was Jewish. or if you converted according to Orthodox standards. Orthodox authorities generally do not recognize conversions performed by non-Orthodox rabbis, and that creates significant tensions. Reform Judaism, particularly in North America, has taken a different approach. In 1983, the Reform movement officially recognized patrilineal descent, meaning that if either parent is Jewish and the child is raised as Jewish, the child is considered Jewish. This was a major departure from traditional law and remains controversial. Conservative Judaism generally follows traditional halakhic standards, matrilineal descent and recognized conversion, while being somewhat more flexible about conversion than orthodoxy. Conservative communities often try to balance tradition with change. These disagreements create real problems. Someone who is considered fully Jewish by Reform standards might not be recognized as Jewish by Orthodox authorities. Converts through non-Orthodox movements may find their Jewish status questioned in Israel or by Orthodox communities elsewhere. But despite these internal debates, all Jewish movements agree on something fundamental. Jewish identity is not reducible to a single modern category. It is not just belief. It is not just ancestry. It is not just nationality or culture. It is something more complex, something that has evolved over thousands of years while maintaining essential continuity. So what makes someone Jewish? After everything we've explored, here's the clearest answer possible. Jewish identity is a covenantal peoplehood. It's not just belief. You can be Jewish without believing anything. It's not just DNA. You can become Jewish with no Jewish ancestry. It's not just nationality. Jews lived as a people for 2,000 years without a state. Jewish identity is a fusion of ancestry, law, memory, tradition, and shared destiny. It began as a tribe, the descendants of Jacob organized into 12 clans. It survived as a people, maintaining identity through exile, persecution, and dispersion. It adapted as a religion, developing practices that could be observed anywhere. It persists as a civilization, with language, literature, philosophy, culture, and collective memory. That's why the question, what makes someone Jewish, confuses people who think in modern categories. Judaism isn't just a religion. It's a people with a religion, a nation with a faith, an ethnicity with a spiritual dimension. And that distinctive combination, that refusal to fit into neat boxes, is precisely why Jewish identity has endured for over 3,000 years. Empires rose and fell, religions emerged and spread, nations formed and dissolved. And through it all, this small, scattered, repeatedly persecuted people maintained their identity. Still here, still diverse, still debating, still connected. From ancient Israel to modern Jerusalem. From Mount Sinai to every corner of the globe. That's what makes someone Jewish. Not a single factor, but a tapestry of factors woven together across millennia. If you love Jewish stories, make sure you subscribe to Jews Chronicles and share this video with someone who needs to understand this. Shalom.